Hey there, this is Red. It's time for a Red review. So, for this review, what we're going to talk about is the Hulk deck. And we're going to talk about the learnings from playing the Hulk deck for a little while. And these are really going to be like rules and things that I learned or goofed up while playing the Hulk deck. Because Marvel Champions is a game that has a lot of rules in it. How closely you follow all of the rules is kind of up to you. Really, that's the great thing about it being a solo game. How much of a stickler you want to be for rules and things like that. So, let's talk about some of the rules that come with the Hulk deck. Things you may or may not have played correctly. Most of these things will be things that I have played incorrectly at one point or the other. Not intentionally, usually. It's just something you overlook, and it happens. It's part of this game. So, let's take a look at. We'll start off with Bruce Banner here. So, Bruce Banner is a fairly easy character. His rules really are not that complex. His experimental research action is not that tough, right? So, it's draw a card and you're going to discard it. That's pretty straightforward. So, the problem that I run into with Bruce Banner is I draw my card, I look at the six that are out there, and I start planning my turn and what costs what, and I'm thinking about which one I want to get rid of, but the problem is that I forget to get rid of it. So make sure when you draw your card, you also discard your card. Don't get too caught up in planning your turn. All right, and on the other side of that, you've got the Hulk, and what the Hulk's got going on. The Hulk is pretty straightforward too. Like at the end of the round, you're going to drop your stuff, right? So when the turn's done, poof, your hand's gone, which is also fairly straightforward. I think the tough thing about the Hulk is the Hulk has zero thwart. So there's a game rule out there, and there's actually asking for some clarifications on that. But the rule is that if you cannot change the state of the game, if the action you want to do does not change the state of the game in doing that action, you can't do it. So what that means is if Hulk thwarts for zero, he cannot do a thwart action because to remove a confuse, I think would be the most applicable situation there. So Hulk's got confused, you want to remove it, so you thwart. That doesn't work because Hulk's thwarting for zero does not itself, in and of itself, does not change the state of the game. So therefore, you cannot do that in order to get rid of the refuse, which would be an after effect of the Hulk trying to thwart. So as I believe it stands right now, with thwart zero, Hulk can't thwart. So that kind of becomes a problem. So maybe you give something that gives him a bonus or something that would actually make him change the state of the game when he thwarts. But that's one of the things with Hulk right now that's kind of rough. So and where that really comes into play is if we start talking about suborbital leap, because it's really the only thing that I've seen that kind of depends upon that is it's his big thwart action. So the problem is if Hulk gets confused, his ability to clear that is really tough because he doesn't have a good action. Really, you got to kind of clear it with another suborbital leap, right? He doesn't have a whole lot of thwart actions in his deck, unless you're playing with the ones that came along with the Hulk back. So, yep, that's kind of rough on Hulk. So, but that's the way that Hulk is, right? Oh, you'll notice it's kind of orange here. I had to change. Normally I've got a green screen, but I had to change to orange because there's a lot of Hulk cards in the green screen with the green Hulk. Doesn't work very well. All right, next card to talk about. Let's talk about Limitless Strength, which is an incredible card. Artwork's fantastic. Totally fits into the deck and the theme. And just make sure that you only spend it in hero form. It's really easy to look at your hand further out and be like, oh, I got Nick Fury and I got this Limitless Strength. We're going to bam, bam, bam in hero mode before you flip over to the Hulk. Because there's other things that you can only do on your alter ego side before you flip over to your hero side. So it's really important to make sure that your Limitless Strength you play on the Hulk side. In comparison, right, you've got energy absorption for Captain Marvel. She doesn't have that restriction. She can play on either side. So Hulk's resource is a little bit limited, but Hulk needs some limits on that because he's got some pretty gross things he can do with that 3 physical. All right, we've got Unstoppable Force. So you're going to ready Hulk, and If you paid for this card only using physical resources, draw one card. All right, so the basic part of that is readying the Hulk is really not, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is if you paid for this card only using physical resources. So, if you reduce the cost of the card to 0, what does that mean? Well, you didn't use a physical resource for that, so you didn't only use physical resources. So you don't get to ready Hulk, right? So if you were to reduce the cost to 1 and play it with 1 physical resource, you would be okay. But if you reduce it to 0 and you don't use any physical resources, you don't get that extra bonus. So, and making sure that you fulfill that requirement that it's only physical resources is another thing. I've missed that a couple of times. I've tried to go on without that. Crushing Blow is another one. You can only spend physical resources to pay for this card. So this is also a different one in that if you reduce the cost of 0 for this, then the cost to play it is 0. You don't have to spend a physical, you can spend 0 physical resources, right, by not playing any cards. So if you reduce the cost to 0, you don't have to have that physical resource. You can just play the card, right? But in order to play it, you have to have a physical in order to do it. And the other thing is this is an attack. You're going to do damage equal to what your attack is at the time. So what that also means is if you play something like Hulk Smash is going to happen first, and then the effect is going to be gone. You don't get to do a second 13 attack with Crushing Blow because Hulk Smash only applies for that attack that you did. So Crushing Blow is going to do your standard attack. You may have a modifier out there like Combat Training, which moves you up to 4. You would get that, but things like a strike, like the strikes that give you bonuses for the attack that you're doing, that's not going to help you out. Okay, Thunderclap. So Thunderclap's card I like a lot. And this is one of those fun things where what's an attack and what's not an attack. So Thunderclap is not an attack. It's a superpower. He's doing an area effect things. And there's, across a variety of the heroes, there's that ability to do a thing that's kind of like an attack, but it's not an attack because it's more of an area and it branches out. Now, it gets kind of weird as you look across the different heroes, but the thing to note here is that Thunderclap for Hulk is not an attack. So things that help you with an attack or require an attack event, he's not going to be able to apply to Thunderclap, right? The nice side about that is that if he's stunned, he can go ahead and play this because it's not an attack event. So it's got some good and some bad to it there, but Thunderclap's been a really handy card. I like that. We talked about Sub-Orbital Leap. Was there anything more that I want to talk about Sub-Orbital Leap? I don't think so. So I guess the other thing is it's from a single scheme, right? So even if you can get rid of 5 threat, it has to come from one place. All right, let's talk about the big bad boy, Hulk Smash. So Hulk Smash is an amazing card. It's so much fun to play. You bring out the Hulk Smash, you're like, raw! Okay, now, the downsides to Hulk Smash are, the first thing is it's not an attack, right? So the things that help fuel an attack do not help fuel Hulk Smash. It's a superpower. So it attaches onto, you have to actually be making a basic attack, not any attack. It has to be your basic attack, and you get plus 10 attack on that. So what that means is you need to make sure that Hulk's untapped and he can tap to attack. So like I've been playing Claw recently, and it gets really tough where you have this great round set up and then Claw exhausts your hero and then your Hulk Smash is kind of toast at that point. Unless you've got something, like you've got your Unstoppable Force maybe and enough resources out there that you can untap yourself to go in for that attack. But you can't do a Crushing Blow and throw a Hulk Smash on there because that's doing damage equal to your attack, but Hulk Smash has to be on your basic attack, right? So, and that's the only time that it applies. The other part of it is it's really awesome in that it gains overkill, but you have to spend physical resources to do that overkill. And that's There's a lot of planning that I've done where I forget that aspect of it. Like, oh, I'm going to blow right through Melter and into Claw and nail him, and that'll flip him over. But I forget that I have like maybe 2 physical resources and 1 energy. So got to remember, in order to get that overkill where you run over somebody, it's got to be all physical resources. Movable object is really not all that complicated of a card. Plus 4 hit points, duh. The thing to remember there is Hulk gains Retaliate 1, so make sure to do your Retaliate damage. That's a really easy thing to forget with everything that's going on, is all the Retaliate that goes on. And make sure when something attacks you, like when the villain attacks with his, as you're pulling in counter cards, that you're getting that Retaliate damage, right? So Retaliate is one of the best abilities in the game, I think, but you have to remember it is the tough part of it. All right, we're gonna move up the side here. Boundless Rage. All right, gonna give you +1 attack. So you got your combat training and Boundless Rage out there and you're hitting for 5. It's cool. Downside is you gotta remember the force response there. After you change form, discard this card. So also you need to make sure that you don't play it as Banner. You can't use Banner's Lab to play this card and then go over to Hulk, because you're gonna lose it. You gotta be in Hulk form in order for this to, well, you could play it as Banner, but then you're gonna lose it right away. So you're gonna have this on in Hulk form, and you gotta make sure when you flip to Banner that you get rid of it. So when you hit your obligation card, right, and it forces you to flip, this goes away. So there's a lot of things where Boundless Rage is not all that long-lived of a card. You can actually stay Hulk for a pretty long time. So as far as cards, as far as most other heroes, I think Hulk is one of the ones that can stay Hulk, or stay in your hero form the longest, in my experience. Maybe Iron Man when Iron Man gets built up, right? But that card, you need to make sure it goes away when you go over to Banner mode. All right, so let's talk about Banner's Lab. Banner's Lab is a very interesting card. So the +2 recovery makes Hulk a beast, because then he's like healing for 6, right? And that's a pretty easy thing to remember. It's remembering that it's out there as part of it, but that's an easy thing, all things considered. The other part of it is that the resource that's on there is an alter ego resource, right? So you need to make sure that you only use that on Banner's side. So where that gets confusing is you've got your Banner's laboratory, and you got your limitless strength, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got 4. No, you've got 1 on one side and 3 on the other side. So figure out how to play accordingly. Also, it's a mental resource, which most of the Hulk stuff doesn't jive with the mental resource thing. All right, we're still sticking with Hulk stuff. Actually, let's talk about this card while we're talking about Hulk stuff. Martial Prowess. So Martial Prowess creates issues in the Hulk deck as far as rules and things to miss, because if you take a look at Martial Prowess, we have exhaust Martial Prowess, generate a physical resource for an attack event. All right, that's where things get a little bit crazy, because Thunderclap, not an attack event, right? So you can't use Martial Prowess for Thunderclap. Unstoppable Force, not an attack event. That's a hero action. Doesn't work for that. Crazy, the most crazy is Hulk Smash, not an attack event. You can't use it for that. So there's a lot of cards where you would think you could use it just as a physical resource, and it does not apply. So it's only for the attack events. Now, that is your crushing blow, and you're probably, if you're playing aggression, you're probably throwing some other ones in there, probably like this one right here, drop kick, right? Those are attack events. Those are the ones that you pay for using Martial Prowess. But Martial Prowess is very specific in that it has to be an attack event. So it's not just a generic resource, it's an attack event. All right, speaking of dropkick, dropkick is another one that's pretty straightforward. It's that you have to make sure you're, again, only using physical resources. So you can drop the cost and pay with just 2 physical resources. That's fine, but it needs to only be physical in order to get the stun and draw a card. So, You can do 4 damage otherwise, but if you want to get the bonus, it's got to be the 4 and drop a card. Let's talk about, while we're over here in these cards, let's talk about Beat Cop. So, Beat Cop is a fantastic card. Oh my God. It's tough to say how cool Beat Cop is. So, the thing about Beat Cop is probably in your game going to get like 9 million counters on there because just Beat Cop is so cool. You're probably grabbing a scheme every round. So one of the things that I have ran into is making sure that I'm taking off of the crisis, that I'm not taking off of the main scheme if there's a crisis out there. So remembering to do that. The other thing is at the second part of Beat Cop, you've got Exhaust Beat Cop, deal 1 damage to a minion for each threat here. So Beat Cop is not a villain time bomb that you can use to take out your villains really easy, right? It's only for minions. So that reduces the use of that ability a lot in that you usually take out the minions in other ways and you just keep building Beat Cop up. But there's a few instances where actually bombing a minion and take him out is really nice. Especially if it's radioactive, man, he's really annoying. But that's the Beat Cop power card. I think that's one of the most powerful cards to come out of this set. Let's talk about your inner demons. So, this is kind of new in the whole obligation stuff in that as you get this, it's going to force you to change your form. It's not a choice, it's change form. So if you're Hulk, you're going to Banner. If you're Banner, you're going to Hulk. You don't have any choice in it, which is so thematic. It's beautiful. But you have to do that action. All right. And then there's if you're Hulk, you're going to exhaust. And then Banner, discard 2 cards, which is, Banner's one is, oh, so awful. You're Hulk and you've got your 4 cards. You're going to go to Banner. You're going to get rid of 2 of them. So you're down to 2 cards. And you probably are playing against Claw and Radioactive Man that attacked you. And so you got like 1 card going into a Banner turn, which, hey, then you're Banner and you can discard your 1 card to draw another card, which doesn't do you any good because it's really tough to pay for unless you have some 0 resource cards in your deck. But yeah, Inner Demons. And so the other thing is you can't get rid of this. Both of these are discards. It's not going away. So don't toss it out of the game. It's going to keep coming back and you're going to have to keep doing it. There's not an easy out with Inner Demons. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Okay, let's see here. Last thing, let's talk a little bit about Abomination. So again, Abomination really isn't all that tough. The thing that I ran into with Abomination is not that he's confusing. He's big, bad, and beats you up pretty tough. The thing that I've missed with Abomination is on his side scheme, you can't take threat off of that while Abomination is in play. And it's really easy when you've got your Beat Cops out there to be like, oh my God, I don't want that. I've got 2 Beat Cops and I'm just gonna grab that off of there. You gotta take Abomination out first before you take out his side scheme. His response where you're taking the top card off your deck and taking extra damage, that's not too tough to remember. That is a thing to keep in mind and to remember. And it's if a fist resource, it's not for each fist resource. So luckily, if you turn like your Limitless Strength, you're only taking 2 instead of 6. But has been a fairly easy thing to remember when he comes to hit you is that he gets his little boost. But the tougher thing, for me at least, to remember has been that you can't take off of that side scheme while Abomination is in play. Because usually you're doing your Beat Cops kind of out of turn of the rest of the stuff. It's also not too much of a problem when you're playing Hulk because he's generally not thwarting a whole lot in the first place. So, all right. I think that covers most of the stuff that I've learned while playing the Hulk deck and things to look out for. So if you've got other suggestions, let me know in the comments. If you think that I'm representing one of these incorrectly, let me know in the comments, and then we can have a discussion about it. And if it ends up being that I end up being wrong, I'll put a little thing up here in the video, kind of at the section where we're talking about it, looking for the clarification and stuff like that. Or clarifying it so that people can go read the rules and that type of thing. So I have to say Hulk is a lot of fun to play. So for me, Hulk has been fun and frustrating both. I like Aggression Hulk. Usually The great thing about Hulk has been Hulk games tend to go fairly quickly, so either one way or the other, for good or for ill. They tend to go out that way. Now, I've mostly played Hulk solo. I haven't played a whole lot of group Hulk. I'm very interested in group play with Hulk to see what happens when somebody else can take care of some of the weaknesses that Hulk has, because Hulk's kind of really a go-at-it type character. He's not really a dance around, what do I want to say there? He's not a control character, more like Doctor Strange maybe, or even Iron Man, where you try and control, or Black Widow, where you try and control the state of the game and have a long game. Hulk say, get in there, stuff's going to happen, and either I'm going to take him out or they're probably going to take me out, because he doesn't have a lot of the basic cards don't go the distance. They're not made for the long game. They're in there for getting in there and doing the thing, and that's about it. Also, usually with your forehand turn and the way the cards are, because you got a lot of 3-cost cards, and like maybe one card that does that, you're usually doing like one play per turn, like attack, suborbital leap, attack with a Hulk smash, attack, thunderclap. Like, that's your stuff. It's not, I'm going to do 14 things this turn. Usually it's pretty straightforward. So, all right. So I hope that helps you out there playing Hulk. I would suggest actually getting Hulk. There's a lot of great cards. Hulk's a fun character to play. Beat Cop's great. The aggression cards that come in here are some of the more fantastic aggression cards that have come out in a hero pack. So I would definitely recommend picking it up, and hopefully talking about these rules helps you play Hulk. So that's it for now, and thanks for watching.